see that I do that, and they think it's disrespectful that I do that, but I'm just reading it off the screen because I want to make sure I get everything right. I cover everything, all of the information that we have. I know a lot of true crime YouTubers like memorize the stuff and then, say it, and then there's a cut, and then they, go over every section in that way. And I don't do that. So if that's something that's gonna bother you, then there are plenty other true crime videos out there, especially ASMR artists, that you can watch instead if it's really gonna bother you that much. Obviously, I mean, no disrespect, I'm just trying to cover everything that is available. So, Mary Pickering Tuplin was born on May 5th of 1870 in Margate, Prince Edward Island, Canada. Margate is an unincorporated village in a rural area of Prince Edward Island. The Tuplins and Milmans were farming families that lived on opposite sides of the Southwest River. Mary Pickering Tuplin was born on May 5th to Johnny and Margaret Marks Tuplin, who had 10 children. William Milman was born in 1868, and he was the eldest son of John and Joanna Milman, one of 6 children. Mary and William met at a party on New Year's Eve on December 31st, 1886, and it is believed he walked her home after the party ended around 3 a.m. Sometime later, Mary told one of her sisters that she was with child and that William was the father. Eventually, Mary's pregnancy and William's relationship with her became the subject of rumors in the close-knit Irish-Scottish community. And obviously this was very taboo at the time. It was 1886, 1887, and having a child out of wedlock was obviously very frowned upon. So rumors ran rampant with that. And hearing the rumors, William arranged to see Mary on Sunday, June 26th. So he hadn't been told before word got around town. Mary's younger brother John was gravely ill and died early the next morning. His funeral was held Tuesday, the 28th, and Mary stayed home to tend her sister's baby. After her family returned from services, Mary left the house without a word. It was just after sundown, and she was wearing a light cotton dress, stockings, and a pair of boots. It was the last time Mary's parents would see her alive. Concerned about his daughter's whereabouts, Mary's father went to look for her, stopping by a neighbor's house and calling for her in the night without success. The next day, he visited the Milman home on the other side of the river to speak with William's parents. Tuplin also went to an attorney to inquire about having a warrant drawn up for William's arrest. Word quickly spread about the girl's disappearance, and by Friday, a search party was mounted with at least a dozen men joining in. 2 clues were uncovered that led searchers to focus on the Southwest River. A handkerchief of Mary's was found near the river bank, and a boat moored near the Milman property was missing a large stone that had served as an anchor. Using a grappling hook, the men began to drag the river. If you don't know what dragging the river means, it's basically like they're using a grappling hook here. It's when you throw the grappling hook into the water and drag it against the ground, like the floor of the water. I was gonna say ocean floor, but obviously it's a river. But like the bottom of the river, you're dragging it with the grappling hook to basically bring up anything that is on the floor. Finally, on Monday, July 4th, they located Mary's body in 4 to 5 physicians were called to examine the body. They determined Mary had been shot twice in the head and also found she was 6 months pregnant. Learning of the body's discovery, William traveled to Charlottetown that day to speak with an attorney about the accusations by Mary's father. Not looking good. An investigation into Mary's death was launched, and 3 days later, July 7th, William was arrested. During his arraignment, John Milman sought to provide an alibi for his son, unable to believe he could be involved in anything so terrible. While testifying he was with William around the time of the murder, the father fainted. After recovering, he admitted he and his wife had been at church meeting the night of the girl's disappearance, and William was sent to the county jail in Charlottetown to await trial. William Milman's Supreme Court trial for murder convened on January 24th, 1888, with Associate Justice Joseph J. Hensley presiding and Chief Justice Edward Palmer and Associate Justice James Horsfield Peters present. After jury selection, Attorney General Frederick Peters laid out the Crown's case. The prosecutor told the jury only 2 questions needed answers. Was Mary Tuplin murdered? And if so, who did the deed? Peters said the answer to the first question was obvious. And regarding the second, he said he would present evidence proving William Milman was the murderer. The Crown called 48 witnesses to the stand over the course of the 11-day trial, which drew large crowds. Most evidence was beyond dispute. The medical examiner testified 2 bullets were recovered, one that flattened against Mary's skull, and another that penetrated her brain, causing her death. One of William's friends told the court the defendant had borrowed a .32 caliber revolver without any bullets the week before the murder, and that he returned it 2 days after Mary's body was found, with 3 bullets and 2 empty shells in its chambers. Another witness testified William had tried unsuccessfully to convince him to sign an affidavit attesting the 2 were together the night of June 28th. A 13-year-old girl also said that she had seen William crossing the river that night in a small boat. The boat's owner then told the court that the 80-pound rock tied to Mary's body had been kept in the bottom of his boat for use as an anchor. While the evidence pointed to William, all of it was circumstantial. Testimony from witnesses also raised uncertainties. A stranger in dark clothing had been seen near the river before sundown, and only one of those who saw the man thought it was William. A few people recalled a wagon traveling at high speed that night with 2 young men and a girl aboard, none of whom could be identified. Witnesses also confused the times connecting with key events such as Mary's disappearance, the church meeting they attended, and 2 shots that were heard in the vicinity of the river. After the prosecution rested, William's attorney, E.J. Hodgson, called just 18 witnesses. Perhaps the most damaging testimony came from William's family. His mother, Joanna Milman, told the court William was not at home when she had returned from the church meeting after 10 o'clock that night. She testified that a few minutes later she saw him standing in the kitchen dressed in dark clothes. William's sister, Mary Eliza, shed additional light on his whereabouts, testifying that while her parents were at the church meeting, William told her he was going down to the river to bathe. In his closing remarks, Attorney Hodgson emphasized the importance of reasonable doubt, that suspicions, however strong, are not sufficient to warrant conviction. Attorney General Peters countered these points, agreeing that guilt must be proved, but noting that reasonable doubts should be impossible ones. Further, Peters raised the argument that Milman was the only person with a motive for killing Mary Tuplin. The next day, February 4th, Justice Hensley helped bolster the prosecution's case in a detailed review of the evidence evidence that lasted 4 hours and offered little to exonerate the defendant. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, after finishing his summary, Justice Hensley sent the jury to its room to deliberate. The jurors took 5 hours to reach a decision. When the jury foreman announced a verdict of guilty, William fainted and was carried from the courtroom unconscious. A few days later, on February 9th, the crowds returned to the Charlottetown courthouse to learn Milman's fate. Justice Hensley rejected the jury's recommendation to spare the defendant's life, declaring Milman had shown no mercy for his young victim even though she had done him no harm. In pronouncing sentence, the judge ordered Milman be kept in custody until Tuesday, the 10th day of the month of April, and that on that day, between the hours of 8 o'clock in the forenoon and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, within the walls of the said prison, you be hanged by the neck until you are dead. Milman was returned to his cell. In late March, he tried to escape, hitting a guard over the head with a bottle. Unable to find a way out of the jail yard, he was captured and placed in shackles until the day of his scheduled execution. On April 10th, a limited audience of 50 people was admitted to the prison yard to view the hanging. To avoid witnessing the scene, Milman asked to be blindfolded before being taken to the gallows. After the sheriff read the death warrant, the jailer strapped his legs together, final prayers were read, and a rope was placed around his neck at 8:08 a.m. The door in the gallows floor dropped. Doctors recorded an intermittent pulse for the next 10 minutes, but at 8:19, Milman was pronounced dead. The hanging was the last on Prince Edward Island in the 19th century. Another 53 years would pass before the next executions on the island. The very last was a double hanging in Charlottetown in 1941. During the post-mortem examination of Mary Tuplin on the shore of Southwest River on July 4th, 1887, the girl's head was detached from her body and was taken to Charlottetown as evidence. Mary's body was buried that night in the same cemetery plot in Margate, where her younger brother had been laid to rest just the week before. She reportedly had been buried without a ceremony, without a casket, and without her family present. The story of Mary's death was passed down from generation to generation in the Tuplin family, including details of her burial. Well over a century later, after hearing the story, one of Mary's distant relatives set out to find what had happened to her skull. He learned that the coroner's office where Mary's head had been sent later became a pharmacy and was now being operated as a restaurant. By chance, someone found a well-labeled box stored in that building with Mary's skull still inside, and the box was turned over to her relative. A second burial, reuniting the skull with Mary's remains, was held August 21st, 2016. About 30 of her relatives attended the ceremony, which was officiated by a minister. Finally, 129 years after her death, Mary Tuplin received a proper burial. It is absolutely insane to me that her skull was separated from her body when burying, and then it was just in this building for years and years in a restaurant before it was finally reunited with the rest of her skeleton. And the fact that her family wasn't there for the first burial, she didn't even have a ceremony until then. So sad. She was just 17 years old and 6 months pregnant. That is the end of this case. That's all the information that we have. With older cases like this, it's honestly hard to have more. Like, this is actually a pretty good amount of information for a case that is this old. as they should have back then, and also they also just really didn't know as much information as one would today when investigating a case like that because of, technology and things like that. But yeah, that is the end